So I could see Nhung here.
Yes, I could see Miss Nhung here. So, Laura, you still remember her, right? Our dean. Hello, Miss Nhung. We have other members who are joining. So we have people.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Yeah, maybe we can start now and people may join us later.
Yeah. Hi các chị. Yeah.
All right. Should we start now? Yeah. All right. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Whatever the time of the day it is for you now. I hope we'll have a great time together. Welcome to our webinar today. And as you could see, the topic is exploring culturally responsive pedagogy in English language teaching. In this webinar, we'll hear voices from both experts in English language teaching and Vietnamese teachers about their current experiences with culturally responsive pedagogy, or in short, CPR. From the University of Leeds in the UK, we have Associate Professor Judith Hanks and Dr. Laura Grasick. Hello, Judith and Laura. Okay, so it's early morning in your place, right?
It is, yes. It's
have you got breakfast yet?
The sun is just rising.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah,
and,
it's still dark actually. Yeah.
So we really appreciate that you can make your time and be here with us. And from Sydney, Australia, we're happy to see Associate Professor Hoa Nguyen from University of New South Wales, Sydney. I guess it's evening in Sydney at the moment. Hello, Hoa.
Yes. Thank you, How is evening? Hello everyone. Thank you. I don't have to cook dinner today.
That's good. It's a second. At the
So
moment in
big
Sydney.
thanks to your husband and kids for managing that without you. Okay, so we would like to welcome on board Dr. Ngô Thị Hằng Nga from Institute of Partnership Development, Phú Xuân University. Hello.
Yeah. Hi everyone, nice to meet you. Yeah.
Dr. Trần Thị Lan Anh from ULIS, University of Languages and International Studies in Hanoi.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's nice to see you.
And from the high schools in Vietnam, we have two special guests today. Miss Mai Thị Ngân from Việt Bắc High School. Hello, Ngân. Are you here?
Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be here with all of you.
Hello, we are happy to have you too. And Mr. Triệu Ngọc Tuân from Na Dương High School in Lạng Sơn Province too. Hello, Tuân.
And he will be here a bit later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he has a family issue. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So my name's Hong from ULIS. And hopefully after the 2 hours of today's webinar, we'll have better understanding of culturally responsive pedagogy and how that might be helpful to us in our teaching. And here's our agenda for the webinar. Okay. So we'll start 14 Vietnamese time. We kind of 6 minutes after that at the moment. And hopefully we can end at 4 p.m. Vietnamese time. Okay. So before we start, I just want to go over some of the housekeeping issues. First of all, to help keep the background noise to a minimum, make sure you mute your microphone when you are not speaking. Okay, so put your microphone on mute. Please use the chat function if you have questions or comments, or when you need to participate in activities with the presenters later on. So use the chat function. And at the end of the webinar, of the seminar, we'll have a Q&A sessions. So we love your questions, and feel free to note down your questions as you listen to the presenters. We'll collect the questions and address the questions at the end of the session. Okay, and one final thing, please note that this session is being recorded. Okay. So now, can't wait anymore, right? Let's join me to welcome Dr. Laura Grasick from University of Leeds, UK. She will be giving us an overview about the project on CPR. Over to you, Laura.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you all for joining us today on this webinar. It's great to see so many people from different places around the world. It's really great for us to be able to talk to you and to share our project with you. Our project, Teachers Exploring Culturally Responsive Pedagogy in Lang Son Province, is a project that's funded by the British Council in Vietnam as part of their Season 23 programme. And the project has a lot of collaboration between 3 different institutions: the University of Leeds in the UK, the University of New South Wales in Australia, ULIS here in Vietnam, and actually, sorry, I should say 4 institutions, and also Phu Xuan University here in Vietnam. We are a big team, and as Hum has already introduced you to our collaborators who are working together from those institutions. That's Judith, Lanang, Hoa, and Nga. So our project is focusing in Lạng Sơn Province in Vietnam, and we've been working with roughly 40 high school English language teachers who come from 7 different high schools in Lạng Sơn. And they probably between them teach at least 300 high school English language learners. We've also been working with the DOET in Lacson and the head teachers from those 7 high schools, as well as our collaborators in the different institutions in Vietnam, Australia, and of course Leeds in the UK. And we work closely with the British Council, and we appreciate their help and support on this project, which started in February and will be finishing next month. I'm going to hand you over to Nga, I think, who is going to continue to talk more about the project.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It's a meaningful project that could bring great minds together, and I'm sure that it has brought about a lot of benefits to teachers in Lacson. And to have a better idea about the context of Lacson, well, we'll listen to Dr. Ngô Thị Hằng Nga from Phú Xuân University.
Yeah, okay, so now I'd like to give you the overview of the project. So before starting our projects with both training activities and research activities, we starting with investigating the teachers and the student needs in our context. By giving the questionnaires about the teachers' understanding and practices around culturally responsive pedagogies, we got 280 English teachers, language teacher response to our questionnaires, and we found that more than half of the teachers reported that they were not confident in using student cultural background to help make learning meaningful. Based on that, we based on this information, we designed our projects, and then we came up with choosing lessons as our research sites and also the training activities. The reason is lessons has 80% of the populations come from ethnic minority groups such as the Nùng, Dao, Hòa, San Chay, and Hmong, and most of them speak their ethnic minority language and practice different customs and cultures. And also, the majorities of the students are from ethnic minority groups. In addition to their ethnic minority language and Vietnamese, the students study English as a foreign language. Based on the student needs and the teachers' needs and also the context of Lacson, our project aims to support English language high school teachers in Lacson to develop culturally responsive classroom resources and practice. And we also wanted to encourage teachers to collaborate with their learners through an exploratory practice approach that later on we will share with you in more details. More importantly, we want to engage students in English language teaching. And with the aims, what did we do? Our activities include the face-to-face workshops and also online mentoring sessions. So for the 4 full day face-to-face workshops in Lacson from April to October 2023, we work with teachers to support them and guide them to understand the exploratory practice approach and the culturally responsive pedagogies. And following up with these face-to-face workshops, we had 4 online group mentoring sessions in which we work with teachers to prepare for the class activities and also the projects. And give any suggestions if the teachers have any challenges or difficulties in applying the approach and pedagogies in their teaching practice. And along with that, we also have some research activities as we do some surveys and also individual interviews with the purpose of understanding the teacher's perspectives or perceptions when they apply the teaching practice, the teaching approach and pedagogies in their teaching practice. And now I would like to hand over to our team member, Judith, to share with you in more details about our project.
Thank you, chị Nga. Lạng Sơn is a unique context, I agree. Geographically, socially, linguistically, as you have mentioned, right? And you have very good reason, persuasive reasons for conducting the research. And as you could see probably from the previous slide, the two focus of the project was exploratory practice and a CPR, culturally responsive classroom pedagogy. I could remember the two first bullet points, right? As I heard the term, exploratory practice. So I immediately think of exploration, right? But what exactly should be the focus of the exploration? Who are the ones who would do the exploration, for example? So we are happy to have Professor Judith Hanks from the University of Leeds. She would have us have better understanding about the concept of exploratory practice. Over to you, Judith.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, so I'm going to speak for about 10 minutes talking about exploratory practice, which is my area of expertise. Hong, you asked a good question. What is it? Many years ago, we came up with this definition. Exploratory practice, or EP for short, is an indefinitely sustainable way for classroom language teachers and learners, while getting on with their learning and teaching, to develop their own understandings of life in the language classroom. So it's a form of practitioner research. It's a way for teachers and learners to develop their understandings. So it's essentially then a way for teachers and learners to work together to understand the aspects of their classroom practice that puzzle them through the use of normal pedagogic procedures as investigative tools. In other words, we use our normal classroom activities to help us to understand questions that are puzzling us about what happens in the classroom. And if you want to know more, you can have a look at my book, or you can have a look at this website, Fully Inclusive Practitioner Research, which brings together action research, exploratory practice, and reflective practice. Oh, thank you. That's a beautiful illustration there. So it brings these three forms together. So exploratory practice then focuses very much on teachers and learners. It is contextually appropriate. Mike Breen talks about it as driven by the local concerns and needs of both the teachers and the learners. And we felt that this was very useful for our project to bring exploratory practice together with CRP. So we think about it in terms of, well, what do we normally do in our language classes? There are a lot of similarities, I think. I've been talking all around the world over many, many years, and you find if you ask teachers and learners, what do you do in your language classroom? You'll find, yeah, we do pair work. We do information gap activities. We do group work, projects. We often ask questions, and that might be through surveys or interviews or questionnaires, or it might be teacher-student listen and answer questions. Vocabulary building exercises, writing, brainstorming, gap fills, poster presentations, using iPads, phones, internet, and so on, and of course, writing. So all of these things are kind of normal pedagogic practice. So then the next question is, how can we use those things to explore our practices in the classroom? So when we're thinking about that, we might ask, why do we need it? Why do we need exploratory practice? Well, Simon Borg has a very useful phrase here from 2013. He was talking about teacher research, but I think we can extend that to talk about exploratory practice, that it has undeniable transformative potential. In other words, it can change what we do to enrich and improve the work of teachers and the experience of learners, and the effectiveness and credibility of organizations like schools, universities, and so on. So I think that's a very helpful definition for us to keep in mind. At the same time, I think we probably also need to think about what Yates talked about good research. So we need to think of it as technically convincing, with clear contribution to knowledge, which may change our way of viewing. And Yates argues that good research truly matters, whether that's to individuals, teachers or learners in the classroom, or to the world more generally. And again, I think that's a really useful thing to keep in mind. So we'll just go to the next slide. But if we think about research, very often orthodox research, so traditional forms of research, just doesn't provide what teachers want to know. If you ask teachers, do you do research? Are you interested in research? Very often they'll say, not really, no. Because teachers seek understanding and illumination rather than explanation and definition. So teachers are trying to understand what happens in their classrooms. And again, this is very central to the principles of exploratory practice. So in order to understand exactly what happens in our classrooms, we have to look at the classrooms as entities in their own right, and we need to explore the meaning that they have for those who are involved in them in their own terms. In other words, not having an external person coming and looking in, but actually inviting the teachers and the learners themselves to investigate for themselves questions that they have set. So I think Judah's comment there is really useful. So once again, exploratory practice is process-oriented around students and teachers. So we start by puzzling. We ask, what puzzles you about your learning or teaching experience? And in a minute, I'll show you some examples of what the teachers in Lakson were puzzled about. Oops, we'll go back a sec. Just go back one. Yeah. Oh, there. So we invite people to puzzle about their practice, and then we invite them to explore those practices together. So working together with the students and the teachers, trying to find out what's happening. Why does this happen? And as we do that, we begin to develop our understandings of what is going on in the classroom. Okay, now we can go to the next slide. So these are some of the puzzles that the teachers in Vietnam told us. So when we asked them, what puzzles you? They asked, why do my students feel nervous about learning speaking skills? Well, we might be able to imagine an answer. We might be able to kind of try to solve the problem. But actually, before we try to solve the problem, we need to understand why. Why are they nervous? Another teacher asked, why do my students find it hard to communicate in English? Again, a really good question, something that we genuinely need to understand. The next one, why aren't my students interested in the lesson? I think so many teachers around the world ask this question. Why do my students fall asleep in class? And again, This is not just in Vietnam. I've asked teachers around the world, and you find it again and again and again. Teachers are asking this question. We need to understand, why aren't they interested? Why do they fall asleep? Why don't my students pay attention in the lesson? And why don't my students like joining activities during lessons? So we need to understand these questions. We need to understand more. So the teachers actually began to investigate. But before we tell you about that, I'd like to invite you to type your question. What puzzles do you have about your teaching where you are? And if you could try to start with why, that would be useful. And I'm going to type my own question, which I was just in China just until Thursday, and they asked. I'll type it for you. Oh, Florence, very good. Yes. Why do they always find ways to cheat during exams? Exactly. Good question. Oh, you're in the Philippines. That's great. So another teacher asked, why do they scroll on their phones? Why do they have, oh yeah, good question, Sen. So why do students have motivation to learn in class but not at home? That's a really good question, actually, and it underlines why it's so important to puzzle rather than focusing on problems. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to hand over to the next speaker, because, but you're very welcome to continue asking your questions in the chat. We've got one more. Why do they find it hard to express opinions in English, even though they have resources to do so? That's a really good question too. Okay, I'm handing over. I'll stop there.
Yeah, but you can still you can keep typing in while your puzzles in the chat box. Okay. Thank you, Judith. That's much clearer now, I guess, for everyone. So in simple terms, for me, I would correct me if I'm wrong. I would understand exploratory practice as a process in which teachers and students would work together to understand different aspects of their classroom practices, and using the normal classroom activities, techniques, procedures as investigation tools, right? Yeah, so it starts from the teachers and the students, and it would have direct benefits to teachers and students, isn't it? Right. Okay. So now you have mentioned the relationship between EP and CRP, and CRP is also the focus of today's webinar, right? What is CRP? What is the link between EP and CRP? We are curious, and we have two other experts on CRP, Dr. Trần Thị Lan Anh and from ULIS, and Dr. Hoa Nguyen from the University of New South Wales. Lan Anh and Hoa, can you help us solve the problem, the puzzle?
Okay, thank you very much. So it's my pleasure to be here with you and to talk to you about our project. So Judith just shared with you about exploratory practice, and I'm very happy to share with you about culturally responsive pedagogy. But before that, I think it's a good start to think about culture, because in culturally responsive teaching, we will deal with culture. So the first thing, I guess, we will have to consider what makes culture, right? So, if we look at culture from an iceberg model, this model which has been existing for quite a long time now. When we talk about culture, we will talk about things that are visible and observable, things that we see in our daily life. And we say that it's just a small portion, and underneath the surface here, we have a large proportion where we don't see it. So the culture would consist of both visible and invisible components, right? So well, I guess everyone can name some of the components suggested, but you can see here we have some explicit and visible components like language, or well, you can think of some others. Can you help me to type in the chat box some of the components you think are observable components of culture? In the chat box, please. So what do you think are different components of the visible part, the observable part of culture, besides language? What do you think? Thank you. So a lot of people just write your answers there. So yeah, eating habits, costume, cuisine, music, yeah, architecture. Yep. So things that we can see and can feel, right? But well, it's said that culture has more than just things that we can observe on the surface. What we say here, above the water, we have a small iceberg, but underneath the water, we would have something more. And we call it deep culture, things that are invisible, right? So now let's, yeah, good, Judith. In China, they don't slow down. Okay, yes, everything is going on at a very fast pace. And now let's talk about invisible parts of culture. So I would have my first idea here, values, and probably you can think about other invisible parts of culture as well. Yeah, thank you, Xuân. Ways of thinking, our beliefs, yes, you are right. Our work ethics, yeah. Well, unique sense of humor, yeah. Okay. Authority. Yes, if we consider culture in our classroom, it will be the authority or the power of different stakeholders, right? That take part in the education process. Thank you. So you've suggested quite a number of different components that can be included in invisible part of culture. And you can see here, this is my suggestion. And this is an adapted version from, well, scholars working on culture. As you can see on the screen, we have explicit visual part of cultures like language and actions or structures, things that we can see. And of course, well, the large part of culture is things that we cannot see, like values, attitudes, beliefs, expectations or feelings, like what you've just shared with us just now. So you see, so in culturally responsive pedagogy, we need to attend more to the invisible part of culture, right? Well, we can see the visible part in our classroom. However, we also need to pay attention to the invisible part of culture as well. And that's how we should be responsive. And let's have a look at the definition of culturally responsive pedagogy, or in short, we call it CRP in our project. So you can see that it's a pedagogy where well, we acknowledge, as teachers, we acknowledge or embrace students' cultures, their languages, and their experiences. And we need to relate these experiences and cultures to our classroom teaching. So culturally responsive teachers, yeah, if we wish to become actively, well, I'm aware, right? We understand and we are aware of the various backgrounds that are present in our classroom. Well, and we act as the facilitator of the lessons, and we help them to resonate with their cultural backgrounds and bring, well, brings richness and depth to our lessons then. Okay, and well, in culturally responsive pedagogy, we would have 8 core competencies, well, that a teacher would be expected to acquire. And well, I'm not sure if Miss Mai Hoa is, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Lara.
Yeah, she will share with us about these competencies. Thank you, Hoa.
Thank you very much, Lana. Yes, so in order to understand CRP, we got a good understanding about culture, and then what it means by CRP. And when we run this project, I'm thinking about any kind of practical framework can help us to understand as a teacher in general and language teacher in particular, to understand what can we do to apply this teaching methodology. For me, CRP, it is a learner-centered approach that where it helps the student, we as a teacher, to help the student to see themselves, their culture, their community as a belonging in school and in the society as well. So I would like to introduce a framework with eight competency that proposed by Munich in 2020 in America. So the first competence is reflect on one culture lens. So what does it mean? I'm sure that when you look at the heading, you can have some understanding what it means. But as a teacher, you always reflect on your own life experience and your student life experience as well. And you also reflect on the membership in various social group. For example, race, ethnicity, social classes, and you design an activity to help your students to understand how these factors influence their belief about cultural diversity. You think about the way to raise their self-awareness about their identity, and how that it impact on the way they see the learning content, they see the world from their own lens. So that is something that you always keep in your mind about. Number two is the recognize redress bias in the system. So yes, we live in the world that the world is not always fair. So we, as a teacher, you try to deepen your student understanding of how some of the social markers as race, ethnicity, social classes, and languages influence the educational opportunity that learner receive. You help them to understand the bias in the bias at different level, individual level, institutional level, and system level. How do you raise that awareness? How do you really help them to understand the bias in the society? Some group of the students are more advantaged than the other. And you advocate for change. When you design a lesson, you think about that. How do you advocate for change to avoid and to help understanding, to help your students to understand the bias in the system? So number three, the third component is draw on student culture to shape the curriculum and instruction. It seems to be very hard, especially in the context of Vietnam, right? Where you always teach the lesson according to the textbook, according to the curriculum. You don't have a time to change it. But if you want to apply culturally responsive pedagogy, you think about how to adapt it, how to adapt the curriculum, how to adapt the textbook. So if you listen to Lan Anh presentation, you can see that the central to the culturally responsive teaching is the belief that student cultural background is a resource for learning and teaching. So you use your student cultural background as a resources for learning. You evaluate on the textbook and the teaching material to ensure that the textbook, the teaching material do not reveal the stereotype, do not reveal the bias, or fail to represent the diverse group. You think about your student, think about the curriculum, the textbook you are teaching, to see whether is there any stereotype here, and how can you change it? How can you complement the the traditional curriculum with example, newspaper, video game, anything that are linked to your student, that your student are related to. So that is something that you draw on your student culture here. So, but again, I want to emphasize that the student culture here doesn't mean that Vietnamese culture, British culture, but the culture here, it can be subculture, right? People from Hanoi is different from people from Hai Phong, people from Da Nang. So you bring all together your student cultural capital in your lesson. Number 4 is to bring the real world issue into the classroom. It seems very familiar, right? As a teacher in general, you always, have you thought about that? As a teacher in general, you think about, yes, how can I bring the real world issue into the classroom? For the CRP, it's critically important, because you try to think about, to address the question. So what, when you teach it, you ask the question like, how and what does this teaching, what does this lesson have to do with your student life? If your lesson doesn't link to your student life, it might not motivate them. So you ask the question, how your teaching methodology or your lesson, what does this lesson have to do with your student life? And does this knowledge connect to an issue your student care about, the world is care about, especially your student care about, and how can your student use the information to take action? So as a teacher, you employ, you can employ some of the projects. So I work with teachers in Indonesia, and they share with me that there's a project that they did is they asked their primary student to develop a plan to clean the local river, because environmental pollution is one of the issues in their own context. So they bring the world issue into the classroom, and as a teacher, you have your student to understand the issue, and then it's more important that not only understand the issue but also to find the problem, the solution, as to change, and the student is agent of change in their own community, their own society as well, and especially or even in the world as well. So bring the world issue into the classroom is one of the important aspects of CLP. Number 4 and number 5, model the high expectation for all students. Oh, this kind of competence seems a little bit new to many of the students, many of the teachers that I've been working with. So what it means by that? It means that as a teacher, as a culturally responsive teacher, you adopt the view that all students are capable of academic success. All the kids, they can, all the children, all the students, they can achieve the high level of competences if they are given appropriate instruction or scaffolding or support. So because when I work with some of the teachers in some of the regional and rural and mountain area, there's a common story is that the teacher always say that, oh, my students, they are in this place, no, they cannot speak English, they're not motivated to learn. That is true, but sometimes you have to question yourself that they have enough support or not, or you scaffold your activity to make sure that they also achieve the high level of language and knowledge competence as well. So for CRP, you come to the understanding that all the kids, all the children, they can achieve the high level of success if they are given sufficient support and scaffolding as well. So number 6, promote respect to student differences. It's quite obvious, isn't it? Because if you want to use CLP, not only CLP, in any classroom as a teacher, you always try to promote the respect for the student the student differences. But for CRP practice, this is absolutely very important, because you try to foster the learning environment that are respectful, inclusive, and affirming as well. So you encourage them to reflect on their own experience, and you help them to value their own culture and other culture as well. Also, in addition to that, some of the activity can help them to develop a sense of responsibility for addressing the prejudice or the mistreatment as well. So, for example, like in some of the context, you have students from a different culture, they have a different custom, different eating habit, or crossing the road, like Judith mentioned. Is it good or bad? So that's something you think about in your lesson. You think about how do you respect the differences from from a different custom, different habit, rather than criticize them, don't value them. So that is something that we want to emphasize here, that promote the respect of student differences as well. So another component that I would like to emphasize in the framework is that you, as a teacher, you collaborate with family in the local community. So you understand that the home and school partnership is critically important to support academic success as well. I understand that sometimes it's very difficult to teachers to communicate with parents and the community. In some situation, you may not know the language, or especially if you are the teacher teaching in some of the area which are, for example, like in Lạng Sơn, with family from a different ethnic minority group, there are a lot of barriers for you to collaborate with family and local community. But again, try to think about the way to establish the trust with the family, because they are very important in their own children education as well. So you learn more about the local community as well. I did a project a couple of years ago when we interviewed the employer in the mountainous area in Vietnam. And one of the aspects that the employer, they really value the employee is that the employee have understanding about the local community, local culture. So collaborate with the family and local community is so important. So you try to understand, try to showing that you are a part of the community, and you teaching their children, you can give it back to the community as well. So the last component that I think it is also important that another component that communicate in linguistically and culturally responsive way. It seems like if somebody presents something, they speak your language, you like it. It's similar, like the way you find the way to, sometimes you speak, of course, I know that, like one of the teachers told me that, oh, I don't know the ethnic minority language, so how can I speak with the parent? I think now with the support from IT, from technology, you can use Google and Translate. Of course, they don't expect you to communicate, to speak very well, but you show the effort to do it. And one of the examples from the teachers that I'm not sure in Lạng Sơn or somewhere, that she mentioned that she always greet her new student in the ethnic minority language. So I think that is a great way to communicate. One of the great way to communicate with the student. And this I just want to emphasize one aspect of this component is that you respect your student as a multilingual student. Like you respect also, you teach English in that context, that student from the ethnic minority, you also show your respect, that you value the multilingualism that student can bring to the classroom as well. So that is all about the important component or aspect that can help you to reflect on your lesson, to see that whether you'll be able to apply any component here within the classroom and beyond the classroom as well. So now we can go next to another activity that I hope that you can participate and you have a little bit of better understanding of what it means by each component. And yes, so I hand over back to Lan Anh.
Okay, thank you very much, Hoa, for explaining to us about the 8 competencies in culturally responsive.
I hope that they don't feel sleepy, because we keep talking about each component competencies. But I hope that from this activity they have a little bit of better understanding. Yeah. Thank you, Lan Anh.
Thank you for your insights. And now I think we can have a better understanding of these competencies by looking at the scenarios. So we would have some scenarios for you guys, and as we show it on the screen, we would love you to read and then match it with one of these or more than one of these competencies. So you think the scenario, the teacher in each scenario is addressing which competencies. So there can be more than one competencies addressed in each scenario. Okay, so let's start now. So be ready with your chat box. Okay, you type your answers in the chat box. Now let's work on the first scenario, everyone. So we have a minute to read, and then just tell me your answers in the chat box, and we can match one scenario with more than one. Yeah. So I'm waiting for your answers in the chat box. And we can choose more than one competence on the right to match with what the teachers is doing in the scenario. Yeah, thank you, Thương. So we have answers from the audience now, right? Definitely it's number 2, okay? Yeah. Well, actually, we can recognize more than one competence, right? Teacher. It's acceptable. Well, we may find one more more dominant competence, but we can have more than one competence here. Yes, thank you, Florence. You say that it could be number 6. Yeah, clearly you can see here if I think competency 2, right? Yeah, everybody say 2. And some mention 6 and 5 as well. Yeah. So in this situation, the teacher has trying to recognize and address the bias in the system, and she recognized the unfairness in the system when students are placed in low-level classes due to their specific background. Here it can be family backgrounds or their cultural background. So yes. Okay. So my answer is 2, but you can have more than one, I guess. Number 6 is okay here when you say promote respect for student differences. Yes, I agree. Yeah. So that's great. So that's one of the scenarios that can tell us more about the competencies that Hoa just shared with us. Now, how about moving on, right? Moving on to the second scenario. So in this scenario, Ms. Zhang is just like many of us who are teaching in cities or in urban areas, and we want to learn about the students' needs and interests and strengths. Okay, so what do you think? This is scenario number 3. Oh, okay. Maybe we'll do this first and go back to scenario number 2. What do you think? Which competence is being addressed here? So Ms. Zhang provided challenging homework, given that she provided support and feedback to the weaker students. Okay, this is something that Ms. Hoa just shared with us, right? About, well, believing in the students' academic success, setting high standards for them. Well, even if they are not really good in the first place, as you may thought, but as we scaffold them, we give them support, they can, well, still achieve success. Yeah, so clearly everyone is saying number 5, number 6, and someone also mentioned number 3. Yes. Yeah, you can say number 3 is okay too, because she did take actions, right, based on the students' cultural differences or characteristics. She take actions to change her instructions. So number 3 is possible as well. I agree. So you can see number 3, number 5, and number 6. And someone like Hương also see number 4. Yes, if the presentations here are about real world issues, yes, I agree with you. And also you say that the essays here are topics that are real world. So maybe number 4 as well. Yeah, thank you. And let's look at scenario number 5. Okay, let's look at this. So this is another teacher working in a province where we would have a lot of ethnic minority students. So he made an effort to learn about the linguistic and cultural backgrounds of his students and how different it is from his cultural background. So he asked students to provide translations of new words, new vocabularies in their ethnic languages in vocabulary lessons. He incorporated cultural references and examples from the students' background into teaching. So the students can see the connections and they will be more engaged in the material. What do you think? So thank you. So you say, and then you say number 3, 3 and 4 and 6. 1, 3. Okay. So it seems like you have a lot of ideas here, and you can relate to many more than like one competency here, right? Yeah, 1 or 3. Yeah. So these are also my suggested answer only, number 1, number 3, and number 6. I can see someone say that number 8 too. Yes, because you try to communicate with the learners in their own language. And that's, well, just through an activity, but it's showing that you are trying to communicate with them in their own language. All right, you learn these words. So in our workshop with the Lạng Sơn teacher, we also learned a few words from Thai language when the teachers attempted to translate the English words into the ethnic languages of the students. So that's a great way of exchanging knowledge about students' language and us as well. So yeah, I agree. So number 8 can be an option here. Yeah. So let's look at number 6. Scenario number 6 here. Miss Hoa reached out to students' family members to learn about their perspectives and experiences. She asked them to take part in classroom activities and events such as book clubs or cultural celebrations. What do you think? Yeah, it's very clear. Yeah, number 1. Yep. Okay. And number 7. People say number 7. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's great. And Thương also mentioned number 4, bring real world issues into the classroom. Yeah, especially if these cultural celebrations, deal with some issues that are happening outside the classroom. Yeah, number 4 can be an option. It's okay, Reza. Yep, it's okay. We are still in the middle of the workshop, so we are happy that you are here with us. Yeah, we do have a recording. So number 4, number 7, and yeah, clearly number 7 is the most obvious, right? Yeah. And we are happy to see that in our project with Lạng Sơn teacher, we have a group of teachers who invited the family members from the students to the classroom, and they presented their songs, their cultural traditional songs, and they play the music of the ethnic minority groups that help the students understand more. And of course, in one class, there are more than one ethnic minority group, so they can exchange their knowledge about those traditions and customs. And it's great that we have real people coming in and talk to us and present, perform for us to see. Yeah, thank you, that's great. And we have scenario number 7. Okay, so we have scenario number 7 here. Well, this is quite similar to the one we just talked about, right? Quite similar. Do you agree? Yeah, number 7. Yep, agree. Other than just inviting the family members to the classroom, here Mr. Đức also incorporated the culture, the literature of the Hmong people into the classroom when we work with the materials. Although it's English language learning, but we can see that students' culture is incorporated. Yeah, Okay, so it's quite similar to number 6. So we can say competencies number 8, number 7, 6, like you said, and even number 1. I think as the teachers learn about the students' culture, it's a good way to reflect on our own culture as well, especially in the context of Vietnam when the King people is the biggest group and we have minority groups, and it's always good to reflect on our, we can say, dominant culture, and to see how it affects our beliefs and assumptions about students learning, and readdress the bias. Maybe each of us can have some certain bias in our beliefs and thinking, right? Yes, I agree with you. And probably this is the last one. Okay, this is the last scenario. I would love to hear from you guys. What do you think is the competencies being addressed here? So we use information from local news articles and videos. We also bring the students to the local tourist site here so they can understand the impact of tourism on the local community. This is especially true to the areas where mass tourism is an issue, right? Yeah. So Endang, you say that it's competency number 7, collaborate with the local community, right? Yes. It can be number 4, 5, 7, like Hoài An, you said it can be number 4, yes. Yeah, bring real world issues into the classroom. Okay, understanding what's happening around the classroom. So like in areas where tourism is an issue, then we can talk about it, of course, link it to English language learning, but address these issues so that they care about where they live. Yes, I agree. So number 4 seems to be most obvious here, but you can also address other competencies. I agree. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining in the activity. So we can elaborate our understandings, deepen our understandings of the CRP competencies that Hoa just shared with us. And I hope, I do hope that everyone has, well, some ideas about CRP, and also think about, well, what we can do in our classroom. But basically, we can do a lot of things, right? Related to the students' culture. These are some of the things that you can do. Well, we go over this quite quickly. So I'm just asking, how often do you? And we have never as number 1 and 5 as always. And you can just type your answers in the chat box and tell me. Well, it may not work with you because if you are not teaching ethnic students, you are teaching students from different backgrounds as well. Like in higher education context, probably your student coming from different provinces, or if you are teaching in a multicultural context, then your students can be different from your own. So how often do you pronounce the students' names? Okay, like what we attempted to pronounce Endang's names at the beginning of our workshop today. Yep, number 3. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. So you say sometimes, yeah. And number 2, what do you think? How often do you make efforts to understand the students' needs and interests before or during our teaching? Yeah. I always believe that getting to know the students' interests, needs, and getting to know more about their backgrounds helps a lot in teaching, right? Yeah. Wow, so it's great to see that a lot of people say 5. Great. Yeah. It's not just at the beginning of the teaching process. It's kind of a thing that we do in our everyday lesson, right? Yes. Thank you. And number, well, next, C, greet the students in their ethnic language. If you are teaching a group of ethnic students from multiple backgrounds, or if you are teaching students from, for example, Đà Nẵng or Hội An, you know, we have different accents, right? So even that is a difference in in culture. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So in our project, the teachers also said that they sometimes greeted the students in their mother tongue. So the students feel happy when the teachers acknowledge that and know that language, although it's kind of a very short exchange at the beginning of the lesson. All right. Yeah. The next one. Well, this is not necessarily in CRP, but in other types of other approaches as well. We also, yeah, thank you, Thương. Say, I will make it from 2 to 3 in C. Okay, good. Yep. Yeah, Miss Thủy, you say, yeah, understand the student difficulties in learning English. This is not only like unique to CRP, I guess. Okay, thank you. Yeah, next one. Well, how often do you invite students' parents to class and talk about their traditions, their family traditions? One. A lot of people say one. Okay. Okay. Yes. When we are teaching higher education, like university students, it's kind of a rare thing to do, like to invite parents to class and talk. But we do have some extracurricular activities, like outside the classroom, where we can get to know them more. And yeah, I think it's a great way, well, whatever level your students are, to get to know their parents and the traditions that are being adopted in their family, right? Not parents, because students are adults, but guest speakers from their networks. Yeah, that would be a great substitute. Yep. Not just parents, but the guest speakers from different professions, for example, right? To come and talk to the students, to share about their knowledge. For example, just yesterday, we invited a guest speaker from New Zealand university to come and talk about their New Zealand experiences. So all those things would be kind of enriching to the students, right? Not just language learning only, but also cultural learning. Yep. And next one. Well, what do you think? Yeah, it's good. Pay attention to different students in the classroom. It's very tempting to pay attention to stronger students in the classroom who often raise voice, right? But we also need to attend to those who are silent in the classroom, or who do not pay attention, or who have some issues just through our observation. We know, or through our chatting, we know. So we attempt to address different students in the classroom. Okay, everybody say 4. I'm happy to see a number 4 here. So G, invite students to share their stories, their personal experiences about the topic of a lesson. Yeah, thank you. 4, great. That's great to see how you interact with this activity. Yeah, 4. Okay, great to see. And now next, well, use pictures about the students' cultures in the lessons. So, yeah, number 2, number 3, yeah. I think after I worked with the teachers in Lạng I became more aware of this. Like, I became more aware of how I could incorporate the pictures and videos about the students' culture into the classroom, so they feel more related. Yeah, anything that can be close to their life would kind of spark the interest, and of course will motivate them to speak or to share with us more. So Number 3, yeah. So probably we will become more aware of this using videos and pictures of the students' cultures, and we incorporate them, and students will feel kind of motivated, right? And so in one of the scenarios before, we talk about this. So we try, although maybe we do not speak that language kind of accurately, now we have the help of Google Translate, or maybe the other AI to help us to pronounce the word. We try, and then they would see that we are trying to get closer to them, to understand them better. Yeah, especially when you teach vocabularies. So you know how excited the Lacson teachers were when they try to translate the English words into the language of the students. So they also have to use dictionaries sometimes, but it's great to know, like an English word. Normally we just translate it into our Vietnamese language, or the dominant language used in the classroom, but now imagine we translated it into the students' ethnic languages and ask the student to try and compare with it with each other. And we recognize that a lot of languages share the same pronunciation, kind of same words, like Thai and other languages like Thai, for example, have very similar pronunciation. And only when we conducted this activity, we recognize that, and the students feel more related. Okay, thank you very much for taking part in this activity, and probably you can tell us more in the chat box later on, from now until the end of the workshop, which competencies you think you have addressed in your teaching. Okay, so just keep talking about that chat. Just answer in the chat box the competencies you think you have addressed. All right, yeah.
Okay, so we can type the question in the chat box. Thank you very much, Chị Hoa and Lan Anh. That's a very informative and engaging session. And your presentation and the scenarios have generated a lot of thoughts and discussion in the chat box. And it has helped us understand the concept of CRP and the 8 competency framework much, much better. And well, it's interesting, like culture, we should be viewed at different levels. That's what I could get from your presentation, not just at the national level, but different regions in the country, like Chị Hoa said, or even the school culture or the small culture of the classroom, right? So thank you very much, Judith, Hoa, and Lan Anh. We have got much better understanding of both EP and CRP now, I guess. And there appear to be a lot of similarities between the two, right? Laura, can you help us? Maybe you can help us have better understanding about the marriage between EP and CRP in the project.
Yeah, thanks very much, Hung, for that. And thank you to Judith, Lan Anh, and Hoa for kind of elaborating on the 2 big concepts in our projects, exploratory practice and culturally responsive pedagogy. The kind of overall aim of our project was to use both of these concepts, both of these theories, to help learners in Lacson engage with their learners. Many of the learners that our teachers are working with in Lacson come from different ethnic groups. And if we have another look at the definition of culturally responsive pedagogy, as Hoa has already introduced us to, and Lan Anh, this focuses on looking at students' customs, characteristics, experience, and perspectives to help us as teachers better understand what we're doing in the classroom. If we look at exploratory practice, we can see that exploratory practice actually focuses on very similar ideas. You can see in yellow there that one of the kind of key components of exploratory practice, and this is taken from the quotation from Breen, is that exploratory practice tries to be contextually appropriate. And that means that it really tries to relate to the needs of teachers and learners in a particular context. And that kind of goes hand in hand with what CRP is trying to do as well. Exploratory practice is about understanding our learners. And this links to the idea of puzzles. If you remember, Judith asked you about puzzles in your own language classrooms. And you came up with some really good puzzles. And coming up with a puzzle about your teaching helps, I think, us as teachers to then work closely with our learners to investigate those puzzles. And it's a kind of co-construction of understanding of what's happening in our classrooms, and maybe also beyond our classrooms, in the community, with families. And that brings knowledge to learners and to teachers about these cultural, linguistic, and social aspects of our learners. And I think linked to CRP and EP is a key component is this idea of respect and understanding between learners. By puzzling about our teaching and working with learners to investigate the puzzle, we're kind of building respect, mutual respect between learners and teachers and learners. And to go back to the competencies that Lenang was talking about, and well, the 8 competencies, they are very much part of exploratory practice. Exploratory practice tries to bring in real-world issues into the classroom through puzzles. Exploratory practice through puzzling, teachers may be collaborating with families and local communities. And I think it goes without saying that exploratory practice through puzzling encourages teachers to think highly of their students and to want to get the best from their learners. We've talked about promoting respect, and I think that is an important part of both of those theories. And because exploratory practice is contextually appropriate, and CRP is also looking at context of the classroom and the learners, then both of them are drawing on local culture to help to shape what happens in the classroom, whether it's teaching activities, the syllabus, or possibly even the larger curriculum. So on our project, we worked with teachers in Lakson and encouraged them to incorporate both of these ideas of exploratory practice and CRP. Our teachers identified a puzzle that they had in their teaching. They investigated this in collaboration with their learners, and they drew on some of the competencies from the CRP framework to help them to understand more about their puzzle and to develop activities that could help to address their puzzle with their learners. I'm not going to say much more about this because that is what we have 2 of our teachers who are going to do now. So I'm going to hand back to Hum, I think, who's going to introduce our teachers.
Thank you, Laura. And as Laura said, we are going to listen to 2 teachers from Lakson, and they will be sharing with us their CRP projects. We have Ngân from Việt Bắc High School in Lakson and Tuân from Na Dương High School in Lakson. Can we start with you first, Ngân?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
So hello everyone. My name is Ngân and I'm from Việt Bắc High School, Lakson City. Today I'm very happy to be here to talk about the CRP project. And after we have worked with the beautiful and lovely trainers from the project, and then we have done some things. And in my school, we have carried out 2 projects, and 1 project for students of grade of grade 10 and one project for student of grade 11. Okay, so before we work with the students, we Miss Lan Anh, please move back to the previous. Yes. Now let's look at the screen. We have this is a project in the textbook for student of grade 10 Go Green Weekend. You know, normally we often give student projects and then they make presentations before the class. Sometimes it is kind so boring and students often feel tired. Yes, but after we work with the CRP projects, we have done something new. Yes, we work with together. The teacher work together, and then we work to show the way to provide help to the student, the way to advise the student to do the projects in a new ways. And this is you know, after we work with each other and we can draw out something like this. Yes. And we do the same with the projects of Unit 2 Generation Gaps for students of grade 11. And on the pictures on the right, this is what I work with my students. And I am quite surprised that my students, they have more ideas than I am at the beginning. They told me that the teacher, can we do this? Can we do that? And I said, yes, of course, you can do it. Yes. And this is how we work with the students. You know, we are quite busy and we don't have much time, and students, they have to go to school on days, and we provide support mostly online. We make online group with students on Yellow groups, and then I give students the main ideas, and then they work out, they work with together, and they give us the main points. They divide the roles of students in their groups, and then they divide the tasks, and I just provide some help if necessary, and then I check their work regularly. Yes. And about the time, students only have 1 week for their preparations. And then on the second week, I check that if it is okay or not. And then I continue providing them some help. And then on the second week, they present the projects in front of the class. Yes, in a short time, very short time. And look at this. This is the outcomes of the student. Because I think I do not have so much time, so I just share with you the outcomes of the project, Unit 2 Generation Gaps of students of grade 11. I divide them into 6 groups, and this is the products of the group 1. They have to make a role play. You know, there are 6 students in this group, and they write the tips, they write the scripts for their role play. And one student, they either grandfathers, grandmother, or the mother and the parents and the children, and in their role play they share about their different views on the clothes or the living size. Yes. And the second group student, they make a surveys about some common points of the 3 generations: generation X, generation Y, and generation G's. Yeah, genders. Okay. And I have them to make a questionnaire about the 5 points, the clothes, the music, where they want to live, and other things, and then they carry out the surveys online, and then they report the results before the class. Look at this. This is some examples of the questionnaires the students have made in their surveys. Yes, and then the information they present into 3 generation: Generation X, Generation Y, and Generation Z. Yes, and after they have done the surveys, at the end of the surveys, they yes, this is some examples of the questionnaires, and at the end of the surveys, they give us some solution. They say that the generation gap that exists nowadays, and then they suggest some possible solution to bridge the gaps between generations. Yes. With group 3, they make a presentation about this, about the clothes, the music, and the interest and strengths and career choice of the 3 generations. You know, the students from this group, they normally are quite reserved. They don't like to share much with other people, and maybe this is one of the quite difficult tasks for them. They do not have so much confidence to speak before the class, but after 1 week, they try their best, and then they can talk. They can talk with confidence, and I'm really happy about that. Yes. And about poster, though the student is they really hardworking. They give me the message. They say, teachers, can we do like this? Can we do like that? And I say, okay, it's okay. They do much better than I think. They prepare the 3 posters of the common points, and they make a presentation in that in which they compare the similarities and the difference of the 3 generations. Yes. And with this group, we have videos. The students from this group, they work together, and they talk about the generation gaps, and they make videos. In the video, they show me how they do this, how they discuss, and how they divide the task, where they do the presentation, and then in their videos they talk about the generation gaps. Yes. And the last one, I myself think that the last one is also the best ones. The best one. This group, they make interviews with the people from their communities. From the picture you can see, they invite the people in their families and their friends' family. Yes. Now they invite look at the man here. He is one of their fathers, and he is a doctor. And they ask question, and he answer, of course, in Vietnamese. Yes, in King language, and then they support some kind of English subs in the videos, and then they invite one of their grandmothers. She is from Thai ethnic minorities, and she told them some things about her life. Yes, in the past, and then she makes some advice to the student now. Yes. And they also make an interviews with the students of other school of their own generation, and then at the end of the interviews they also give some messages to the teenagers nowadays. One of their messages I really like best is that you just respect everything you get nowadays. I really like this. Yes. And this is the products of my students. They have carry out the projects. They told me that the teachers, I really like the ways of doing projects like this. And when I find that when they work in a more open environments, they can feel more confident and more relaxed to express their ideas. And they really love doing this. Yeah.
So how about I will show a part of the video now?
Yes, okay, help me.
Okay, so generation gap is the difference between two or more generations about belief, politics, and traditions.
Our group is interviewed 5 people, including 5 generations. So let's get started.
Chào ba, bọn cháu là nhóm phóng viên đến từ lớp 11A7. Hôm nay bọn cháu có thể phỏng vấn bác một chút được không ạ?
Được.
Đầu tiên bác có thể giới thiệu một chút về bản thân mình.
Bác tên là Hưng. Bác năm nay 51 tuổi. Bác làm nghề y, cụ thể bác là bác sĩ.
Theo bác thì sự khác biệt giữa thế hệ thời bác và thế hệ thời bọn cháu có gì khác nhau?
Nếu mà nói về sự khác biệt thì khoảng cách về thời gian rất là lớn, cho nên là sự khác biệt giữa thế hệ bác và thế hệ các cháu là rất là rõ ràng. Có rất là nhiều sự khác biệt, nhưng nếu mà liệt kê ra ấy, thì dài lắm. Vì các cháu đang ở lứa tuổi học đường, cho nên là hôm nay chúng ta sẽ nói về cái sự khác biệt về lứa tuổi học trò đi.
Vâng.
Thì nói trước về thời kỳ của bác, lứa của bác thì đi học xa lắm, toàn đi bộ thôi. Có bạn nhà nào gần trường thì may mắn, còn có những bạn đi bộ đến 2-3 km, phải dậy rất sớm để đi bộ đến trường. Mà ai cũng phải có một cặp sách rất là to, vì đến đấy thời kỳ đấy thì chỉ có phấn trắng và bảng đen, nên những cái nội dung cô giáo, thầy giáo giảng trên lớp là chúng ta phải ghi lại bằng sách vở, ghi vào, chứ sách giáo khoa hồi đấy nó bị hạn chế. Còn thời kỳ các cháu thì thuận lợi lên rất là nhiều. Ví dụ như là được học bằng đèn chiếu này, tivi này, học online, có những buổi học online với các bạn nước ngoài mà ở tận nửa bên kia của bán cầu có thể giao tiếp được với chúng ta. Còn nữa, ví dụ như là phương tiện các cháu học tập bây giờ có điện thoại di động, có internet, trên tham khảo được rất là nhiều nội dung, rất là nhiều hình thức học ở trên thế giới, và kiến thức thì rất là rộng. Thời kỳ các bác thì không được may mắn như vậy. Chính vì vậy thời kỳ này các cháu ấy đang có cái lợi thế lớn như vậy thì các cháu sẽ phát huy được rất nhiều, và bác nghĩ rằng với cái khối lượng kiến thức mà các cháu dung nạp được như thế thì các cháu sẽ đóng góp được cho rất nhiều cho xã hội đấy.
Cháu bà cho cháu hỏi một chút được không ạ?
Thấy là sao bác không?
Bà đây bao nhiêu tuổi rồi ạ?
Bà pin này bà chưa tiếp thi pi.
Bà thấy hồi xưa với thời nay có gì khác nhau?
Hồi xưa một bay ấy còn là khổ, cho cái này cái làn ngại hơn cái bà một bay lại. Một bay kinh khổ và man mậy này, man bụng này, khổ mấy này, khổ nhà nước mình mấy bài mì bán đông mà, xong là mấy phân ra bên này nhà nước nhận vẫn mà phá được dân, khai được dân, mà phá và khổ và man bụng, mà kinh, nay mình đang kinh khổ và cưa.
Thế còn giới trẻ bây giờ?
Giới trẻ bây giờ thì ngài còn là mình sẽ phải thằng thứ mình sẽ đạp điện, mình sẽ may, mình sẽ đạp bày, xong rồi mình mì khổ mì nửa mì bia kinh bánh khổ kẹo có thứ kinh cái này chơi trẻ cái này đầy hơn thổi bà này.
Và sau đây chúng ta sẽ cùng trò chuyện với một người bà đã từng chứng kiến 3 cuộc kháng chiến chống Pháp, chống Mỹ và Trung Quốc, đó là bà Vạn Khuê.
Xin chào mọi người, hôm nay mình sẽ giới thiệu bà của mình. Bà tên là Phạm Thị Vĩnh, sinh năm 1940 và hôm nay bà sẽ kể cho chúng ta về thời xưa của bà.
Ngày xưa bà lên đây thì cái Lạng Sơn này vắng vẻ lắm, không có người mấy đâu, nhà cửa ông ít, toàn người dân tộc, ít người Kinh. Mà bà sống thì vào cái bệnh viện làm việc ở trong núi, trong Gia Cát ấy. Thiếu thốn đủ thứ, lại khổ nữa. Ăn uống thì chả có gì. Làm việc thì dụng cụ rồi máy móc các thứ không có gì. Chỉ dựa vào cái ống nghe và 2 cái bàn tay. Thế thôi. Ngày xưa thì thời của ba là lạc hậu. Học hành thì thiếu thốn đủ mọi thứ. Bây giờ thời đại của cháu, thời đại văn minh, khoa học tiến bộ. Bà mong các cháu thì học hành giỏi giang để sau này thành người có tài, cống hiến cho đất nước.
Okay, so maybe that's enough to have an idea of her project.
Well, we actually
Yes.
want more. I
Chúng
almost
ta sẽ cùng trò chuyện với bố bạn Thị Linh.
yeah, that's amazing, and both what you could do and what the student could do. Yeah, right.
So thank you very much. I think that just because my student they do these projects with their enjoyment, and they also want to study about the ways or the life of their grandmothers and grandparents, and they do it with a lot of enthusiasm. Yes.
Yeah.
And okay, I will continue to share with the CRP competencies in our projects. So you can see in our projects, we have used applied competency ones, reflects on one's cultural lens. Because in the interviews or in the projects, students, they can raise their own voice and the people around them's voice about the generation gaps. Competency 4, bring real world issues into the classroom. You know, on the groups, they agree that the generation gap that exists. So they work together and they suggest the way to bridge the gaps. Yes. Competency 7, collaborates with families and the local communities. You know, in for some groups, they have to need the help of the people in their own families and people from their local communities to join and to share the ideas and the opinions. And competency 8, communicates in linguistically and culturally responsive ways. You know, in the interviews, they invited 2 people from the Thai ethnic minorities, and they speak their own language. And this is one of the most interesting ways to the student. Yes. And this is what we, the teachers, have learned from the CRP projects. Firstly, I myself, I must honestly speak that I really like these projects, the way it works, and we can change the teaching methods, and we can make our lesson more interesting to the students. We can understand more about the students, and we find more ways to motivate students in the class. We can also organize different activities during the lesson. And about the student, after doing this projects, I find that my students, they can do much better in a more familiar environment, and they can do much better with the way they like to do it. Yes. And this is some reflections we get from the projects, from the student. The student, they told me that the teachers, I find more confident to speak English now, because before the projects, they say to me that the teachers, I'm afraid the content is not good enough. The content is not right. I have to check the content very carefully. Yes. Or they say that the teachers, my presentation, I think is too long and I cannot present it. I cannot remember. And I say, no, don't. Just take it easy. You say and we can understand it. Yes. Next. When they are confident to speak English, they can speak English more fluently. And they say, so teacher, I like this way of doing projects. And I also hear the student from another class, I haven't asked them to do the project like this way, and they come to me and they ask me, the teacher, why don't you let us do the project like class 11A7? And I think I'm really happy, and okay, next lesson we can do it. Yeah, they hear about the projects. Yeah, okay. And it is a reflection from the teachers. The teachers, my college, they say that now I know how to solve puzzles. How to solve the puzzle of the student is really important. Yes, and I say now I know how to use my students' background to motivate them in the lessons. And I say now I think I can be more creative in the way of teaching. Yes. And let's look at our project posters. This is a poster of the projects, and in this poster, we present, I think, the main things of the project we do with the student, and this is we have a QA code, and then if you are more interested, you can scan it, and I also upload maybe the main thing of all the groups of students here. Yes, I can share with you. And this is another poster from group of 11/10, and this is from my colleagues. They share with us. Yes. And this is one of my presentation today, and I hope that I can share with you something, and you can do with your student in the future. And thank you for your listening.
Thank you very much, Nguyen. That's very inspiring. And it's amazing, right? How small changes and in the way that teacher approach teaching could lead to completely new learning experiences for the learners. We are all impressed by what you and the students did. And we could see the realization of EP and CRP in the project very clearly. So you have brought what Judith, Lan Anh, and Hoa and Laura have mentioned from the beginning till now into the projects nicely. We could see the realization of that. And I think we do have one more project to show, right? Do we have time for that? I think yes, right? Yeah. So Tuan cannot be here with us, but I think we can still watch the video and see what he did with his students in a different context. Yeah. So Lan Anh, can you play that video? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a project from Na Dương High School teachers. So let's have a look at what they did in our CRP project.
What we, the teachers, did to prepare for the teaching. we carried out an online survey to investigate the puzzles. There are 2 puzzles. One from grade 10. Why are my students not motivated and confident when speaking in public? And another from grade 11. Why are my students not motivated and confident to engage in teamwork and making poster presentation? So how we explore the puzzles. So our students open the link provided, or they can scan the QR code to do the survey. We did not only give them multiple choice questions, but also open-ended questions. Now is what we found. Please look at the results of the survey before we apply CRP to teaching. So from grade 10 we found some students are not confident to speak. They're afraid of making mistakes, grammar, pronunciation, etc. Students don't have enough vocabulary, structures, and ideas. They don't speak English much. Most of them did not have chance to practice speaking, and they wish to speak with even foreigners. They want to have less homework or exercise. And from grade 11 we found they are not motivated in speaking English, or they are not confident in speaking. They are afraid of making mistakes, but they don't have enough support to use English. They think that they are bad at presenting and their friends love them. They have little chance speaking English. They wish to have more chance to speak English outside class. They want to have more resources and support from teachers, but they really think that it's important to learn and speak English. And some students stated that many factors can affect their motivation to speak English. For example, for the job in the future, or maybe watching English movies, culture. Next, let's move to support activities for students and link to CRP competency. Teachers met and discussed what we should do to help students, so we gave them structures to present. And mind map to discuss in group for presentation. We also have to group students and ask them to pick up one leader for each group. Link to CRP framework. So we have for grade 10, we link to 2 competencies. Competencies 1, reflect on one's cultural lens. By that, we aim to help students to show their understanding about their responsibility in their family. Competency 4, bring real-world issues into classrooms. Students can talk about their daily life and what their family often do. For grade 11, we link to 3 competencies. Competency 1, reflect on one's cultural lens. Students can present their knowledge of healthy and unhealthy habits. Competency 4, bring real-world issues into the classroom. Students give pictures or images of what is good or bad for their health from the place they live, food or drink or anything else. Competency 5, moral high expectations for all students. The students can work in group, they can draw or even present in English or their own language at the same time, or they can do PowerPoint effectively. And this is what our students did. They presented with their pictures or images. Some could draw very beautifully. Some showed their videos from their real life.
My father is preparing the motorbike. My mother and my grandmother is preparing for the
Together in both English and some brought their own products, which is made for human health. For example, scented candles, a product from our students in Nazung High School, which is considered to give good sleep and it could reduce stress. And lastly is the reflections. And please watch this for our post survey. And here are some reflections from our students. Grade 10. I found it more interesting to talk about my family life. I should speak English to communicate. I understand why I should do housework. I wish to have more lessons like this to be applied. We seem to be eager for speaking lessons. During the lesson, we join actively in class activities. After the lesson, we can remember speaking situations more thoroughly. We have more chances to practice many other skills like writing and reading. We are more confident in expressing our ideas in English.
Yes, these are some reflections from the students, and they also have some reflections from their group of teachers, the Nazung High School teachers as well. But because we are running quite a bit late now, so I would skip this part, and I hope that you know what Nazung teachers have done in the CRP project. Thank you.
Right. I'm still kind of on the very high notes. Just watching the video. Okay. All right. Wow, it's just amazing. I guess all the students would love to learn this way, right? Yeah, and we have read quite a lot of lovely words from the audience. Well, personally, I want to thank the team, the presenters and the teachers who participated in, well, your project for bringing us, the audience, with such an amazing experience. We have got maybe less than 10 minutes for Q&A. I think there are some questions that the participants have put in the chat box. There's one. And Judith has answered some of the questions, but I think, well, there's a question from Ha asking about the difference between EP and project-based learning. Would you like to clarify the differences? Lana, you asked. Yeah.
Maybe, is that Judith is here? Yeah, Judith.
Judith? We cannot hear you, Judith.
Yeah, so
sorry. I have two off switches for my microphone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So for me, the big difference is that these projects, they are projects, of course, but they are designed by and conducted by both the teachers and, very importantly, the learners themselves. So the learners were asking the questions I think the teachers guided them, helped them, and collaborated with them. But I think the real difference is that this was learners very actively investigating their own culture, which is amazing. It's absolutely these projects, these are just two, but they are fantastic examples of how to motivate, how to excite learners, and to bring culture into their own classrooms. I don't know, do you agree?
Yeah, can I just add something, if that's okay? Yes, and I think, Judith, also it's about the fact that the starting point for all these projects was a puzzle, and the students and the teachers were working out a puzzle which kind of culminated in a project. Perhaps in project-based learning, maybe there isn't that puzzle.
Yep. I think that's clear now, if you are still here, and others, about the differences and similarities, for sure, between EP and project-based learning.
Thanks a lot. I think I would like to follow up with that, but I think it has, thanks Judith and Laura for answering my questions. I think I really want to know about the needs analysis for teachers and students before you started this project, and also the assessment, like how do you know that the project is successful? I mean, like from the presentation here, I can see like how wonderful, you know, the teachers and students has done with the project. But I'm saying like for the, I mean, just like to showcase the results, like to quantify the results, like how do you do it?
So it's about need analysis and assessing the projects, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Hoa, do you want to say it?
Yes, yes. I think that is a really good question. Yes, very good question from the research point of view. I might just say something. Maybe my colleague here would add is that we have got a different instrument to measure the impact, to explore the impact of the program, product-based instrument and process-based instrument as well. So we, in terms of the, yes, we investigate the needs before the project, and then also investigate their competency before the project and after project. But what is more important is that there's a lot of evidence throughout the project. We can collect data, we interview them, or like multiple interview for some cases as well. So we can show, for me, like a comprehensive evidence for the project through the interview, through their product, to their conversation, to the survey as well. So is that something I missed, Lanai, or Judith or Nga? Yeah.
Yes. So I would love to add a little bit more. We work quite closely with the teachers during the process as well. We had form mentoring sessions where we can hear about their difficulties and provide support. So you can see we supported them along the way. So we know what kind of difficulties they had. Well, in the first mentoring session, they had quite an unclear idea about what they have to do, and we work with them along the way to provide them with support. And I guess it's another chance for us to have kind of interactive dialogues with them. And we also through different ways of communication, we got to know how it impacts on the teachers and the students. We do have reflections at the end as well. At the last workshop we had kind of a whole morning reflecting on the experience, both written and in oral forms. So those are kind of added aspects we use in the project to get to know about the impacts and the change, and hopefully contribution to the learners as well. I hope that it answers your question.
Yeah, very much. So I just want to clarify. So you use interviews and surveys, right?
And reflections.
Yeah, and Can I add something? And you can see that I said that we use survey interview, and we also sorry, there's some reflection at the end of the projects. But you can see that when the teacher did teachings, and also they they did projects using the CRP in their practice. We also collected reflection from students and teachers who participated in the school projects. So the student, show that what they changed, how they felt when they participated in the lessons, or when they did the projects. So that kinds of the process evidence that we collected during our project.
So the data that you got, are they qualitative or quantitative?
It's both.
Both. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ha. We desperate to publish a couple of papers from the project. And we also reflect on the challenge as well. It doesn't mean that everything worked very well. We reflect on that as well, especially working with a different group from a different country as well. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, and for me, like coming, I don't know, like from a researcher, teacher trainers, and maybe an admin perspective. So most of the time, we like in education or social sciences, we use qualitative data a lot. But I think like those like companies who sponsor the project, they want to see, not only teachers or students' perspectives, but also something that is quantifiable. I mean,
Yes.
I am a qualitative person.
Yes.
I have done mostly qualitative research, and I think and I believe that it just like qualitative research provides a very deep and meaningful insight into teachers and learners learning. I just kind of like try to maneuver here, like kind of balance between qualitative and
Yes, no, I really see your point, but yes, we have a very reliable and valid instrument to measure their competency, control responsive pedagogy before and after, and we provide kind of multiple data, which I hope really provide a very comprehensive picture of what we've been doing and what the teacher and student get from the project. Yeah.
I think we have another question in the chat, which we should really move on to that, just to be fair to other people. So Nguyen so a question about why does culture become so intriguing to students? And then somebody else asks, can I have a question as well? Please do write in the chat. Yes. So the first question, why amongst a lot of aspects in life does culture become so intriguing to students? That's a really good question. I am intrigued because we did not set out to study motivation. We did not set out to kind of raise or lower motivation. And yet it seems to me from watching these videos of the teachers and the students, they were highly motivated. And I think it's because it is something directly relevant to themselves. Rather than reading about the Eiffel Tower or visiting Paris or visiting London, this is something real, something very close to their lives. And that speaks both to exploratory practice, the principle of relevance, and also the CRP competence of bringing real life into the classroom. I can see Kevin, you have your hand up. And also Tuong Nguyen. So should we ask Kevin?
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, especially your meaningful and impactful project on culturally responsive pedagogy. So I would like to ask about the difference between three key terms, culturally relevant pedagogy, culturally responsive pedagogy, which you are talking right now, and recently, what we just discussed so far in the scholarship of culture, education, teaching, learning is culturally sustaining pedagogy. So what is the difference from your opinions, also from the experience, because you are doing the project right now about the connections between culture and also education, teaching, learning. So I would like to learn about the difference between those three key terms. And also, I would like to share my experience because I'm teaching, I'm a lecturer in the graduate program education at the university in Canada. And in our program, we have a lot of international students from around the world, especially from Southeast Asian and also from early developing country. And we try, as a faculty member, we try to bring in the idea of culturally sustaining pedagogy, because that's the goal of this one is quite different from culturally responsive education, is that we try to support the multilingualism and multiculturalism in the practice of teaching and learning, especially at graduate level right now. So I also would like to learn from the experience about these three key terms. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is anyone would like to address the Kevin questions? That is, thank you, Kevin. That's very interesting question, and theoretically as well. So if you are familiar with the literature, and you can see that people keep talking about this concept a little bit different. But for me, when we talk about the culturally responsive pedagogy, especially in language teaching, that we try to link with the pedagogical and trained languages, where we try to promote the multilingualism, and we try to support the teacher to exploit the student culture and linguistic repertoire in their pedagogy. So responsive here tend to be more kind of teachers more aware of the needs, and we can combine it is aligned with the exploratory practice as well. So that is the key concept we just want to pursue. And of course, for me, it's also linked to culturally relevant pedagogy as well, because the teacher use a different teaching strategy that are relevant and interest to the student as well. When we talk about the culturally sustaining pedagogy, we think about the future, how do we sustain it in the future. That is something we may think about in the future for the project, but at the moment now, we keen on the second approach, that is responsive pedagogy, where we focus more on how we maximize the learners' cultural and linguistic repertoire. It's similar. For me, it's a little bit different, but similar to the pedagogical and trained languages in language education as well. So I hope it has, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Ihua. It's Yang here. So lovely to see you here, and congratulations on your project. It was very meaningful.
Wonderful. Good to see you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And I can see one final question in chat that we have time for, is asking, I think, about the kind of future directions of EP and CRP in our context, in Vietnam, Australia, and the UK. And I think that's a really good question. And it kind of leads us nicely to the end of our webinar, where we can tell you a little bit about our plans for telling other people about our project. We have another webinar planned for December, which will be looking at contextualizing exploratory practice in 3 different contexts, in Vietnam, Japan, and Indonesia. And we will be sharing more information about that. So watch out for emails and social media about that soon. We will also be publishing a number of articles about our project. And I'm sure that if you contact us, we can share some more information about what's happening in Australia and the UK around issues of exploratory practice and culturally responsive pedagogy. I know there's a lot going on in Australia around CRP. And certainly in the UK, there's a lot of exploratory practice work going on in higher education contexts. And apart from those kind of dissemination things, we are also keen to work with more teachers in Vietnam, in other provinces, maybe not just in Lacson, and possibly also connecting teachers across the region, as we've been doing today, actually. So it's great to see people not just from Vietnam, but from many other countries in the region. So I think on behalf of all of us now, we'd like to say thank you so much to you for spending your Saturday afternoon, morning, evening with us. And we're just really pleased that you've enjoyed our presentations, enjoyed hearing about the teachers' projects, and we hope that you can take away some of those ideas to use in your own classrooms. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
How about the evaluation? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I forgot about that. Just before all of you dash off, if you look at the QR code on the screen, and I think there's a link in chat, please could you just very quickly complete this evaluation form for us? It will be really useful for when we think about our next webinar. So thanks so much.
Yep. Can we put the link in the chat?
Yes. So you can see the link in the chat box. Yeah, please help us to complete the evaluation form. Yeah, in case you already leave, we will send the evaluation form through the emails to you. Thank you very much. So just spend about 2 to 5 minutes to complete the evaluation form for us now before you leave.
Yes.
And while you do that, I wanted to say thank you once more to the teachers from Lacson and the students.
Yeah.
They were absolutely wonderful. These were inspiring projects, and I just wish that everybody in the world could see them because they are fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah, we can. Yes. We have a high number of participants today and very active participants as well. So
yeah,
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there's a question in chat about sharing the video from today. I think we'll be in touch with the British Council, and I think they will be able to share it through their network. So yes, you will have access to that later.
I've recorded the webinar today and will send to BC, and I think they would upload it on YouTube or other channels, so you can access our webinar recording once again later. Yeah, while everyone is completing the evaluation form, if you still have questions, we are kind of willing to answer them now. So yeah.
There's a question about certificates, Yanang.
There's, okay, if we can get the certificate for participation. Yes, we will think about that. At the moment, we haven't thought about that, but we would send the certificate to those who are here today. Yes. Please send us the evaluation form, and so we know that you are here with us. and then we will acknowledge your participation through the certificate. Thank you.
Can you stop the recording?